introducing Lenita Gipson, who is running for District 233 School Board that is over Homewood-Flossmoor High School. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to the public. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Lenita Gipson. My apologies, I'm still a little bit under the weather. I had a little frog in my throat, but Lenita Gipson. And my family moved to Flossmoor about 31 years ago. And I have had a career in STEM pretty much my entire adult life. I've worked at global pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, diagnostic companies, selling a wide range of medications and medical devices, all to help improve the quality of life for patients all around the world.
And tell us why you've decided to run for the board.
Yes, and it's really interesting because to me, education is pretty much the foundation of everything. And you can have a very challenging background like I did, as I mentioned before, as I mentioned during the forum as well, that my mom passed when I was 12, my grandparents raised me, and it was really education that propelled me into my field and to be successful in my field. I have a bachelor's degree in biological science. I have an MBA in healthcare administration, and I've had a number of different roles: finance, training and development, sales, business development, finance, like all different types of roles. And I've created annual budgets. I've served on local and state boards. Most recently, I was the president of my homeowners association in Flossmoor, 48-unit building in Flossmoor, and I've served on 2 state boards in Illinois. And for me, I've loved volunteering. Even at my sorority I've been in for 24 years, which the foundation of it is education and serving students. And so we do a number of programs that really benefit underprivileged students. And so that's my life. And our motto is actually service to all mankind. And I live that, I breathe that, and I'm hoping to volunteer my time and my knowledge to help the board and bring science to the board.
Yes, science. You stress STEM.
Yes.
And HF has a great science program. We're going to open a new science wing in the next few months, which will give students greater access to new science projects and abilities. So why do you stress STEM so much? There's other fields in academics, but you have zeroed in on STEM.
Absolutely, because I truly do believe that when students have mastered science, and that's a really technical field, and just learning the scientific method and being able to attack a problem, uncover the unknowns, and follow that process from beginning to end, those skills don't just help you in science fields. I mean, they help you in every field. And depending, if you could be a plumber and you need to find the answer to what's wrong with this situation, you could be an entrepreneur and just creating services for a client. All of those skills are transferable. So I just feel like if students have, and I really do feel like all students have a passion for science. And I may be biased, but I've always loved science. In 8th grade, I remember we dissected a cat, which was like really interesting. but I just always found it very fascinating, and understanding the body, and you eat every day. So what is that, the impact of the food that you're eating towards your body and your long-term outcomes, morbidity and mortality. So everything I think is related to science. So I think if students are able to master that, or if you're able to create that spark in students, then it's transferable throughout a number of different career areas. Okay. Yeah.
HF does have science requirements in its curriculum. Do you feel we need additional science credits? Have you looked at the curriculum, and would you have suggestions? Or
if and when I am elected to the board, I hope to serve on the planning committee, and I know the planning committee has a huge role in the curriculum and education, and I would be able to provide inputs in that area. I'm on the outside looking in right now, so I'm not exactly on the board. However, once on, I would take the opportunity to really take a deep dive into that curriculum and see what type of suggestions I could offer. But with the science ring, it's a state-of-the-art science wing that's opening up. It's net zero, somewhat like the second in the state. I mean, it's phenomenal. So it's really going to run itself. Like the whole building is a science experiment. So I would be able to really take a look at that and see how that's working out. I know, for example, with the science scores there in terms of HF students, they're on a level of commendable, and there aren't as many in the exemplary as opposed to the state. So that's something that we could definitely look at to see how that can be beefed up so that the students can be more competitive locally and globally.
Okay. HF has approximately 2,700 students, and everyone is unique, and they all have hopes and carry that into the classroom. Some need additional help. How can HF manage to balance the student with a high academic, with those that have low academic challenge?
Great question. I think HF does a great job so far. They've done a great job with managing that and juggling those different challenges and trying to keep all the balls in the air. HF has a number of different resources like MTSS and also that Terrace matrix that was implemented during the pandemic that are in place to help students to really pinpoint and to gather data to find out where students need additional support. I feel that the board can really serve as a united front to really wrap ourselves around the students and find out how we can help them to achieve even more academically. But it's really important to know each student is different. Everybody has their own goals. Everybody has coming from different backgrounds. Everybody's thinking about things differently. So you see one student. So you really have to find out what motivates them and what is needed to help to bring them to the next level. And HF has a wealth of resources available to really help the students, but looking at some of the teachers and how the teachers are really involved, and administrators in helping students select courses, some of the counselors, psychologists who are there for the mental and emotional well-being of the students as well. Just taking a look at the overall student and seeing how we can help the students to achieve in a number of different factors.
We in the HF community are very proud of our school. From all aspects. You know, we had the state championship basketball team. We had the state champs in theater. We believe that we are great. And there was a point made in discussion that outside of HF, people don't recognize HF as a top school. So how do we adjust that in the broader picture of the world outside of HF and the south suburbs, that we really are a school to be paid attention to?
Well, I know when we first moved out here about 31 years ago, I was in awe with HF and the campus and the students and just how amazing the reputation was. And it still has a great reputation. However, I know the ranking has fallen, so I don't know if that may be driving some of the perception of the high school. So just taking a look at that, looking at the data to see how we can pinpoint, where we have a decline and address it in that manner, and look at the bigger picture and see how we can increase the ranking. But looking at the Illinois report card, I mean, there are some things that have dropped. So we can I'm a data person, of course, again, science, in which, hey, can impact everything. But I'm a data person, and I saw that absenteeism was about 30%. So looking at that, why is that? Really trying to address what's going on there, because the absenteeism, if that is low, that can impact the academics. So that could be one key. I know that HF has done a really good job in looking at residency, but maybe benchmarking and seeing what some of the other schools are doing for residency. Like I looked at some of the other schools in, not necessarily in this area, but in the state, and they have even more strict requirements for residency, like having affidavits from landlords, you know, in the past 30 days. Like they're really like strict on it. So that could be it too. So just a lot of different things. AP classes, making sure that, you know, the students are taking the classes, they're passing the classes, that impacts the school ranking as well. So there are a lot of different things. I don't think there's one particular answer or one particular solution. I know it didn't happen overnight in terms of the slip in rankings, and it won't happen overnight to turn it around. However, I think if all of the different key stakeholders involved really rally together and again unite to make that a focal point, I think it can be turned around. But HF is still viewed as a top school. I know that when some families are moving to trying to find neighborhoods for their small children, that is one thing that they look at, you know, is the ranking of the high school. So that's something that we definitely need to take a look at to make sure that we get back to being seen at HF is back to being looked at as a destination high school.
Okay. We are a community that accepts people from various walks of life. And right now, I think the federal government is going to make changes that could impact that. Do you have any suggestions or any ideas on how HF can keep its openness and still meet federal requirements without saying DEI?
Well, that's interesting because I've been regularly attending the board meetings, and I know that the current superintendent brought that up in terms of DEI. That's a hot topic. That's the big elephant in the room, and he did address that, and he was really clear that the North Star for the profile of a Viking is DEI, and that's not going anywhere. That's part of the fabric of HF community. And right now, I don't think that's an issue. He said it wasn't an issue, so I believe him. And then also looking at, in terms of the financial status of HF and where the funding is coming from, about 55% of the funding comes from taxpayers, like real estate taxes, and about 1% comes from federal funding. So at this present time, as he said, I'm quoting him, it's not quite an issue right now, but as we get there, if we even get there, you know, we can, you know, try to find ways maybe to supplement what may be lost. Because 1% of, you know, depending on the number, is a significant number. So looking at perhaps grants, there are grants available. One of my 4 keys I mentioned when we had our interview, I talked about STEM greatness, of course, which we talked about, managing and growing the budget, which we're talking about right now, safe and supportive schools, and then making every student matter. But in terms of growing the budget, there are different departments that have grant funds that are available that I'm not sure whether or not, like I said, I'm on the outside looking in right now, but I'm not sure whether or not that's being fully maximized, but there is money out there that could be gained. And as the past president of my HOA and our property management company, for example, we had some money that was seized from our association, thousands of dollars, and our management company could not get it back from the state. I was the one that got it back from the state. I researched it. I figured out the process. I found out how to do it from beginning to end. I followed, again, scientific method, found out how to do it from beginning to end. I got the money back. I got the money back in like 30 days. They were like in awe. But it's honestly just read. Read and find out what the process is.
Yeah.
Who's the person you need to talk to? If that's not the right person, well, who do I need to talk to? You know, just follow a process and you would get it. And they were in amazement. And we were able to put that money back into our funds, you know. So honestly, there's a way. You know, if there's a will, there's a way. And I honestly feel I'm resilient, I'm persistent, and I'm resourceful. So, you know, I'll figure it out.